Greetings, fellow adventurers, and welcome to the Couple of Nerds podcast. I'm DnDWife, the creator of DnDWifeStories.com, and your co-host. Joining me is the man behind the screen, my brilliant dungeon master, and also my husband, Eguile. Say hi, Eguile.
Hey everyone, excited to be here sharing our nerdy adventures with all of you.
Absolutely. So what's Couple of Nerds all about? Well, we're diving into the realms of Extraeus, sharing our experiences, playing D&D in our apartment, and exploring the intricate tapestry of relationships both in and out of the game.
And we got some exciting segments for you all, from lore deep dives to crafting tips, artwork showcases, and relationship advice on and off the table. We've got a little bit of everything for every kind of adventurer.
So whether you're a seasoned adventurer or a tabletop newbie, we invite you to join us today. Tune in, relax, and enjoy the magic of Couple of Nerds. May your rolls be natural 20s and your adventures be legendary. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Couple of Nerds. I'm your host, DnDWife, and with me is my co-host, husband, and dungeon master, Eguile.
How's it going, everyone?
Welcome. So today's segment is a Just Us segment. This is a segment where we give a little behind-the-scenes look at our hobbies and the events in our lives, especially nerdy events that we really love. Yeah. And so for this particular Just Us segment, we're going to be discussing apartment gardening. I'm super excited to cover it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been probably gardening now for almost like 8 years since we started.
Yeah, it's been really nice. And it's you don't think that it gives, so much because you're doing a lot of work, but it's really fulfilling to see all the fruits of your labor.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's kind of the cool thing, too, because I mean, I think it was like, we had just graduated college not too long ago. So it was like this, when you're out of the school system and you're no longer having like semesters and finals and midterms that kind of keep track of things, it was kind of a way to try to make it where we could see time and not feel like there was just kind of this ever just day moving by that we kind of started getting that tunnel vision.
Yeah, because you get lost in the grind of work and it's tough to tell, the days turn into weeks, then into months and years, and before you know it, everything's gone by.
Yeah, and obviously when we first met and you kind of told me about how, you're very much an avid plant lover. Yes. And one of the things you always kind of mentioned, especially when we were first dating, is just how much you hated to receive like cut flowers.
Yeah, and it's not because I hate flowers. I love flowers. I don't appreciate having to cut flowers just for the sake of a couple hours of enjoyment. I'd rather have them grow because then they stay beautiful for quite a bit longer.
Oh yeah, and so then I think it was like probably like the first year that we were married and living together, that I decided on your birthday to surprise you with mini potted roses as a way to give you a bouquet of roses, but not have them be cut.
Yes, and it was such a touching gift. I really appreciate it, especially because I was like, oh, yay. And he remembered.
Yeah. And just that, that simple gift just kind of like bloomed into what is now a pretty major part of our life of growing not only just herbs and vegetables, but also just having greenery and plant life.
Yeah. After that, we kind of really caught the green bug and we just wanted to keep doing more. So we did. We started getting other plants eventually, and so for the rest of the episode, we're going to be talking about not just the joys of apartment gardening, but also kind of the challenges that we ran into, some of the tips that we got along the way that we can share with listeners, and then offering you also a little behind the scenes look at our gardening journey.
Yeah, and hopefully you can learn like a little bit from our mistakes, because trust me, there was tons of trying just to learn about not only just growing plants, but also growing plants in such a small space.
Yeah, that was really tough to get through, but eventually we did build a much bigger area. It's still in a small space, but I feel like we've gotten better placing the plants so that it fills a lot more space.
Oh yeah. And it really, like we were saying, or like I was saying in the beginning, was that it really just sparked from getting you those mini roses. And then it was kind of like when you get a cat for the first time and you're like, well, we should get another one because you don't want him to be alone.
Yeah, he's gonna have a buddy.
And so we had just these 2 roses on our patio, and so it was like, well, hey, we could start getting more plants. I remember we just went out to Home Depot, got I think about like 8 pots, got some dirt, had no idea what to get.
None at all.
And just kind of picked out mostly edible things to grow because we
Herbs,
kind of figured
yeah.
that was the smarter play. If we're going to do something, at least make it worth it.
Yeah, we wanted to start with like easier things or what we thought was easier
Yeah.
things. So we started off
Flowers
with
are so
herbs.
much easier.
Yeah, a little bit sometimes.
And when we started too, we were very much into where we wanted it to be organic. We didn't want to have any chemicals. We wanted to stay away from anything unnatural, using things like fish emulsion and just good old picking out bugs when you see them.
Yeah.
But that, that was really kind of our dipping our toes into it. And it took a couple of seasons for us to really kind of learn what exactly even to start.
Yeah, it was tough. We didn't really know what we were doing. So a lot of the plants ended up heading in directions that weren't healthy for them. So in our limited experience, we unfortunately let things get too leggy. With herbs, you wanna keep them low and bushy.
Yeah, and then the other thing is like, so when we very first started, we try to grow everything from seed. And like as much as that is like kind of the idea that like, oh, this is the best way to get plants done. Right. Oh man, it's just kind of not in what we were looking for. It is definitely not worth the investment of trying to grow individual plants from seed because, oh man, anything goes wrong. You move them wrong. They get a half an hour less light, or it's just 3 degrees too cold, and they all go away.
And they're gone. Yeah.
And I think we tried for at least 2 years of trying to grow from seed.
And we did get a few.
Yeah, but every single time it was just usually it never survived.
Yeah, I think we got maybe one plant from seed, maybe.
And so we eventually saw ourselves growing because as we got more, we wanted to have different varieties of plants. Yeah. And so what initially on our first like upstairs apartment, we had this little kind of outdoor patio, no roof. So it was just massively exposed to the sun.
Big sunlight beam.
And so we eventually just covered all of the ground floor besides the little bit of space you could walk around with just pots all over. Kind of any space we could get.
Yep, and they had to be on the floor because the complex didn't allow us to have anything on the sill.
Yeah, I didn't want those falling into our neighbor's patio beneath us.
Yeah, that would have been a little sad.
Yeah, and so, we really tried to start off, and our idea was, hey, just put them all in pots. They'll grow, sunlight, we'll put water in them, no problem. Yeah, I mean, when you have no coverage like that, that sun just beat the ever-loving everything out of most of those plants. And we really had to start kind of looking at, okay, what do these plants need sun-wise? Yeah. It's not about just, you water them when they get dry, and if they look a little leggy, you cut them. No, you got to kind of really know what species, what kind of other types of plants you're using, and what really works for the amount of sun you're going to get.
Yeah, you have to really pay attention, too, because the plants all have unique different ways to tell you, how they're doing. So if they're doing well, they look beautiful, but if they don't, you see clear signs that they need help.
So, and then we eventually moved, and when we moved, we kind of reset the garden, and we kind of have this this tradition now that's spanned, and that every time it's your birthday, that's when we redo the garden and we get new plants and we make sure everything's nice and fresh. So we've been doing that now for every year, and it's kind of nice. So now that we live in another apartment, we're the downstairs apartment now. So now we don't have the sun problem, we have a lack of sun problem.
Yeah, because we do have the overhead patio creating a roof over it. So now there's a very limited window for sunlight to reach.
Oh, yeah. And then from our region where we're at, we had a few years ago just massive drought, heat wave that for patio gardeners is some of the worst things that can happen because you could water in the morning, and because it's 115 for 12 hours straight, by the time you get home from work, all your plants are so distressed that there's no recovery.
There isn't. Yeah, there were times we would go and it would be so hot by the time we got home, the pots were dry as a bone. And
it's like, unless we can hire a apartment gardener, which makes no sense, it was just too difficult. So now we've definitely implemented a lot more of kind of learning from our struggles, and that we now have this kind of tier system. We have this kind of tier rack that holds all our plants vertically that we can move around into the light when we need it. And the biggest thing, which I was so excited to do this year, was everything is now set on a solar self-watering system, self-contained. That means all the plants get watered twice a day without us having to touch anything.
All automated.
And we can also feed them fertilizer through it.
Yes.
I mean, it's totally hands-free, and it's made it now where we can just go out, harvest what we can every day, and we don't really have to worry about our plants struggling if another heat wave like that happens.
Exactly. And that, that was our main concern this time going around setting everything up. But I think we did it in a good way with the vertical planters. We made sure that all the plants get enough sunlight. It's really ended up well, I think.
And be sure to check out the Just Us Discord. We're going to post all of our kind of garden photos that we've had over the years. So you can kind of see how we really just started with a couple of plants to where we now have this kind of more organized garden that really kind of has a feng shui to the patio, and that's more integrated with the patio as a living space, more than just all the floor space being covered with potted plants so that you can grow as much as you could.
Yeah, now we have a little seating area out there, a little space for us to enjoy the plants while we're in the patio and not just have to be like, okay, take care of them, go back inside.
Yeah, and so, now we've moved into now looking at house plants, which is nice because our digital artist at Link, she's a very big house plant person. So we've gotten a lot of tips from her. Yeah. And I know you've recently started experimenting with a new house plant that you're hoping will grow and become something pretty cool.
So, we got the patio, but we can't always be outside in the patio. So it'd be nice to have some greenery inside. So I decided to start. And I bought this gorgeous plant called a trade scontia. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah,
but
wouldn't.
It is a beautiful plant with green and purple leaves and then these fluffy little white flowers when it does flower at the end. It is a
beautiful plant.
It's gorgeous, and you can propagate it with cuttings. It's super simple. I'm making like 5 different cuttings right now. I have a little video that we're going to post all set up to show you how it all goes down. But they look super lovely, and they don't take a lot of maintenance. You just got to make sure they get enough sunlight, enough water, and they're good to go.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, as glorious as it is to have plants everywhere, it is kind of a trial by fire, honestly, in that you can do all the research you can online and you can get all this information, but until you like experience it and you kind of see, like, I can tell you right now, I know what caterpillar poop looks like.
Yep.
Like, I can spot that stuff a mile away, and I know that there's caterpillars in my basil.
Yep. Or snail trails.
Right. And you can show me that all you want online, but until you get used to that. And so that's why we really want to share some of these kind of early tips, because there's a lot of things that we learned that if someone just would have told us, we might have saved some plants or had a little bit of easier time moving on. And so we're hoping that, some of the advice we can give to you guys out there, that hopefully it'll also help you either with your current gardens or maybe get you to start your own garden.
Because it's super fun.
So the real first thing we always want to look at is the plants themselves, because really the first major hurdle is, do you want to grow for beauty or do you want to grow for food?
Right.
And I think that's an important kind of dichotomy of what you're looking for, right? Like, if you're just trying to spruce up a spot and you would like maybe some roses or some flowers, very simple to do, because most of those plants, especially in a patio setting, are temporary. Go to Target, go to a store, buy a couple of great plants, put them in a great pot, water them for the season. Once winter comes, chuck them. Yep. That's pretty much what you're looking at.
A lot of them are very seasonal, so you will not get them throughout the year unless you specifically go looking for flowers that are completely annual.
Yeah, or if you bring them indoors. Yeah. So if you have the ability to bring these kind of plants indoors when your region tends to get a little cooler, sometimes you can stave off their hibernation and kind of trick them into thinking of an eternal summer.
Yeah, you can keep them healthier longer.
But obviously that's going to take a lot more work, because you're bringing the plant indoors. If you're like us and we have cats who happen to love any kind of greenery they can get their teeth on,
they're so curious.
We have to be careful with what plants we bring in the house, as well as where we place them in the house, so that they don't just get munched on.
Yes, but thankfully there are a bunch of super cat safe plants out there that you can get for your home. I think like the money tree plant is one of them, so it's super fun.
Cat grass is very inexpensive. It's a very good thing that you can just kind of put all over your home. Just be careful in that overindulgence can lead to little piles of cat grass puke all over your apartment if you're not careful.
So, be aware. Maybe just 1 or 2.
But when it comes to things like growing food, we have a particular fondness with growing herbs. In particular, basil, which you happen to love so much when we make it into pesto.
Oh, it is so good.
So we really focused on those kind of items because most herbs are really good at growing in small container-like settings. So, heck, some of the herbs like mints and those ivy kind of herbs, you want them in containers.
Yes,
Never plant,
alone.
unless you want a field of mint, do not plant mint in the ground.
No.
Keep that
It'll
in
spread
get
everywhere.
a nice 10-inch container, and you will seriously have more mint than you know what to do with.
Absolutely.
And so when you're picking out those plants, you also want to take a look at like what they need for sun as well as how tall.
Yes.
We didn't really look at the height issue to begin with. And so really those two, what really you got to look at is how tall is the plant going to be, and then how much spacing does it need between plants.
Yeah, because that presented a few issues early
You know,
on.
But I will say that some of those are what I would call optimal spacing, in that yes, if you wanted to grow a field of this plant, they need to all be 12 inches apart, right? Like keep them a foot apart.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a requirement. You can bring them to like half that. You just know that once you bring those plants a little closer, you're going to need to probably put more nutrients into the soil because they're going to be competing their root bases a little more with each other.
Yeah.
So if you add a little bit more fertilizer to the soil, you're going to help them. They're still going to not grow as big as they could by themselves.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It'll be a tougher.
But you're going to have them grow a little bit more foliage. So this means in case what we're looking for with herbs, that's all the stuff you want to eat.
Yeah, the leaves are what you want to, to gather to dry out eventually and turn into your little seasonings.
And the other thing to pay attention to is how does your plant kind of evolve? And if it's a plant where as soon as it gets to a certain height, it starts growing flowers.
Yes.
You need to make sure that plant does not get to that height. Key point, cilantro.
Yep.
Or, or coriander, depending on if you're listening
Both
around
names
the pond.
work. Yep.
But it's one of those plants that even though you feel like you're hurting it by constantly cutting its tall little sprouts, if you don't, it will kill itself to make flowers and seed.
Yep.
And we ran into that more times than I'd like to admit, but we finally just now have gotten used to growing things like cilantro and parsley. And it's only through rapidly cutting it. Almost every other day, I'm cutting the large stalks off to constantly keep these tiny sprouts growing. And we get a near infinite supply of cilantro and parsley.
Yeah, I think tomorrow we're gonna have to cut it again just to keep it down because new growths are constantly popping up. But you definitely got to be very creative with your limited space because
Tetris is the name of the game.
We're in an apartment. We don't have a whole garden to work with. So we definitely had to maximize the space that we did have. And in order to do that, we did the vertical planting. We have like hanging planters every now and then too that we put up there that are gorgeous. So, there are different things you can do to make sure that you can still have your space and enjoy it too.
Oh, yeah. And it's really important that you want both look, but also function.
Yes.
So we really started off getting a lot of plastic because they're cheap and they come in a variety of really interesting shapes, designs.
They're versatile.
But be aware, they do not breathe.
No. And if you want healthier plants with healthier root systems, you do have to have materials that breathe.
So really the tried and true is unglazed terracotta. Don't get glazed because that glaze defeats the whole purpose as it seals it in. So having normal terracotta, it may look plain, but your plant's going to enjoy it much more because you're going to get a lot more. One, the water is going to seep more around the plant because the terracotta itself is going to absorb the water, but air also will pass through, which is going to help you for things like root rot as well as overwatering and also of mold and mildew that can have from wet soil.
Yep. And on top of that, to prevent the overwatering, and what really works well with terracotta plants is to, before you plant it or put any dirt down, to put an extra layer of gravel just to make sure that there's even more drainage so that you avoid things like root rot because they can be such a big problem.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing too with apartments is you have to be aware that, especially in like our upstairs apartment with no overhang, if it rains, it's going to soak your pots, and if you don't have the drainage in them, you will see that root rot, or just all your soil will just be removed from the water. So you also want to make sure you drill holes under every pot you have, so that way the water has a way to get out of your pot, especially if you use plastic. There's no bad thing with using plastic. You just need to take the extra precautions and be aware after a few seasons that plastic is so brittle.
Yeah, it does start to break.
So we've had to change a lot of our really good looking plastic bases into something new, just because when we went to move it, the whole thing snapped and almost fell off and broke.
It was tough
because we weren't aware, we weren't kind of basically planning for that to be so brittle so soon.
I have a tiny Tim plant that was gifted to me at a previous job, and I've kept it alive this long. It's awesome. But it did come in a plastic container that I didn't really change it out of until very recently. And we did come to find out it was super brittle and super difficult to move to even get the plant out because it was falling apart.
We essentially broke the pot away from the plant.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and then the biggest thing too is like we really wanted to be organic, and we really didn't want to have like lots of chemicals because one, we don't have anywhere to store them in our apartment, and we have cats. We don't need them getting into things that
we
are
don't
bad.
want that around our
So
cats.
a few of the recommendations I give is for fertilization, fish emulsion.
Oh yes.
All natural. It is almost impossible to overuse fish emulsion, though. Please follow the instructions on the bottles.
Yeah.
But it is not a very harsh chemical that won't hurt your plants, or if anyone were to get in it. Smells terrible, though.
It's just a little bit of fish poo.
When it comes to taking care of your plants for insects and creatures, diatomaceous earth.
Oh, so good.
Which is just crushed seashells, so it's nothing. You can eat them.
Yep.
It
Completely
gets rid of
edible.
all your crawly kind of bugs that will prevent. You can draw almost like a witch's barrier and just kind of go around all of your plants and draw a barrier of this powder to prevent any kind of slugs and snails and other kind of creepy crawlies.
Other things with exoskeletons that can dry out, things like that, that will affect those bugs.
And then for most of your kind of diseases or other kind of insects, neem oil. Just pressed from a neem seed, so it is, again, organic. But it's very good at getting rid of things like aphids and spider mites. The only catch is you cannot spray a lot of it.
Yeah.
Think of it like you're putting a clear coat on your plant. And so what it just is going to do is amplify the sun's rays. So we actually lost a huge stalk of plants, a raspberry bush that I struggled so hard for, because by doing so much of the neem oil, it created that glossy coat and just burned up in the next season.
Yeah. So it couldn't come back from it, unfortunately. And that's the tough thing. You know, you try and you learn, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but
yeah, and you might be asking yourself, okay, that sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of stress. It sounds like you guys struggled and had. Why do you do all this if you're just stressed about another creature in the house that has to survive? But trust us, it has been amazing to have, and I think it's brought us together closer as well.
Oh yeah. Well, for the one part, we hardly ever buy basil because we grow it.
I don't need to. I have become a master of growing the basil.
Yeah, and it can be very expensive to buy fresh basil. There are definitely some benefits that you can gain. We're trying out our hand at growing tomatoes, so then that's another thing we don't have to buy at the grocery store, especially with today's prices being the way they are.
Yeah, and the big thing too that we've moved is we've gotten ourselves a dehydrator too, so that way we can constantly be drying our herbs and stuff, so that way they can quickly be preserved, no mold, no mildew, and then we can store them over the summers, and we now have all these dried herbs that one we can also give as gifts, which we have before, but also just have it for our own, because I mean, I don't know the last time when we actually bought herbs from the store.
Yeah, very rarely.
I mean, I grow a rosemary plant just for Thanksgiving.
Just so we can have fresh sprigs of rosemary.
So there's a lot of like tangible goods that you can have, because not only just when it comes to food and herbs, but also of the beautiful flowers. You can create yourself a simple space to relax and enjoy and have color, especially if, apartments, we can't really paint the walls, but we can fill our patios or our spaces with color and beauty in form of plants. And you're also going to get the catch of better air because you have plants. They're going to obviously provide you with a little bit fresher air. I'm not saying it's going to be, you're going to just experience it overnight and it's going to filter,
oxygen.
but it does provide a sense of freshness to the air. You just can smell a home that has plants in it versus a home that does not.
And if you have flowers, they add a beautiful aroma to the air too. So so that all kind of helps you feel better.
And I think a big thing for us is that we have very kind of busy lifestyles.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a podcast. We run a D&D table.
We work full time.
We have hobbies, and it's nice when it's just a moment every morning when I wake up and I look at my plants and I check them to make sure nobody's hurt, and I watch them grow, and it kind of gives me a sense of accomplishment, because every time I go out and I see growth, I not only know that time is moving by, but I'm also seeing stuff survive and grow through my work, through my hands.
Yep.
And it's almost therapeutic.
Yeah, well, it also gives you this really lovely sense of accomplishment because you're keeping something alive, you know. We unfortunately don't have children, but you know,
There are plant
we
babies.
get our enjoyment elsewhere. You know, we have our cat babies and we have our plant babies, and it's really lovely to see the not just the growth that you can have a part in, but it's also just nice to see that you're doing something, you're building something.
Oh yeah, and there's nothing more like that sense of self-satisfaction when you can be growing and you're letting people know, hey, everything on here, we actually grew on this patio.
Yeah.
Like where most people assume, oh, if you want to grow, I need a farm, I need tractors. No, you could have just a 5x5 patio. And you could still be growing quite an amazing amount of food, herbs, or just beauty.
Hashtag
in that small
apartment homestead.
Right? I mean, so, and that's really the thing. And I found myself having a little bit less stress because we got to the point where now you can sit outside on our patio. We have various lights and kind of aquaculture. And that way you can just have a sense of peace and look at all this lush greenery in front of you. That is essentially another facet of your home's system.
Oh, yeah. It's so relaxing. We can sit out there, read a book, listen to some music, or just stare off into space because it's so relaxing.
Now, I've been the one that's been diving in the hardest to begin with because I really enjoy having a connection with nature. I grew up a lot outside, outdoors. I was a big outdoors kid. And so it's really nice to have that connection because you kind of can see, especially with organic farming and that you're not using chemicals, that you're really on a day-to-day notice, really taking care of. You kind of start noticing. I mean, I can look out the window and be like, what's wrong? And I know a plant's in distress.
Right.
And it applies to other things out there. I mean, we go now to garden places, Home Depot, and we'll see plants and we're like, oh, that plant needs nitrogen. Oh man, that they need to move that plant out of the sun.
Right.
What are they? And there's just a connection, a spirituality, if you will, of that nature that you're bringing food, you're taking the work and the energy, and you're being provided for it.
Yeah, and you know, you were a rural kid, but I was a city kid, so I didn't grow up around plants at all. And so, you know, this foray into gardening really kind of opened up my world a little bit into something that was out of my comfort zone, that I was not good at first, you know, and I'm still learning. But it's really nice it's something that I never got living in the city.
Yeah, and not to say you can't.
No,
obviously,
not
it's
at
just
all.
opportunity, and really, it's that first step. And the biggest thing I can say, and the biggest plan is that you're gonna fail.
Yeah,
Just know that. And it's not a bad thing. It's really not. And growing plants and growing this and having that connection is the nature understands too.
Yeah.
So it's not like you mess up once, you go, oh man, I don't want to kill another plant. But you got to take that opportunity because once you get it down and once you start learning, they're going to reward you just as much as you reward them.
Yeah.
And so it really is the first step as the hardest. I know it's cliche, but really what ended up being kind of an accident for us was really that first step.
Yeah.
And so, maybe get your significant other some potted flowers and see how they respond.
Yeah.
But really that change in mindset and that connection that we created through just a simple gift really sparked an entire harmonious project that we do together. That's just another facet, another connection in our lives that not only brings us a sense of joy, but brings us a sense of closeness to ourselves and nature.
Yeah. And if you're a little, worried about being able to keep the plant alive, maybe start off with something easy like a succulent that's super like easy to keep alive. You don't have to water them often, so in case you forget, you don't have to feel like you hurt your plant.
And if you even want to go even more extreme, you can always go for things that are called air plants.
Yes.
They're no roots. They are living plants. They are just a plant where you kind of soak them in water every couple of weeks, and that's all they need. No dirt. They don't really need sunlight. They really just need the bare minimum, and they're really nice if you are in a place where you can't have regular sun or watering and still have some sense of life and growth within your home.
And they look lovely. They, and you can place them strategically in different places, put them in baskets to display. They look gorgeous. I would definitely recommend, at least as a starter.
So like we said, it really just started with a simple gift, but it was really just that gift that gave pretense to really give it a shot and needing an excuse to do it. So really you see that we kind of knew that we were going to be getting into something we didn't know.
Yeah, it was daunting.
For a good couple of years, it was always every year we were buying new plants and new plants. But now we've gotten through the advice of others and what we've learned online, and then just through trial and error. I mean, we had a lilac plant that was essentially just a stick.
It was a stick for like 6 months.
But I did not give up on it. And I just did everything. And now we have this lovely lilac bush.
Oh, we'll take some pictures and post them on the Discord. Once it flowers.
Because this will be our first year that it fully flowers.
Yeah, and it looks beautiful, guys. It's a big round bush.
So it's like all this work but there's that sense of satisfaction that I'm waiting for. Because when that lilac blooms, it's just showing all the work and all the energy was all worth it.
Yeah.
And that's what we really hope to push out for others. And that's why we're doing this Just Us. Because it's not just TTRPGs. And if that's your only hobby, that's awesome. Yeah. Because you have a hobby. But really you want to kind of have this this plethora of different kind of hobbies to fill each of the little niches. Because like our apartment shows the kind of 20 or so different hobbies we have spread amongst ourselves, but it's created a home that shows how all of those hobbies have been integrated into who we are and what we show to the world.
Yeah, and how they come together, because all of our hobbies are really fun for us, but they're also ways that we can build skills that are really useful for us.
Yeah. Because you really want your hobby to bring you a benefit, right? And so that way, if it's just a sense of relaxation and joy, and a good atmosphere, why not?
Right.
So hopefully, with hearing us and hearing some of the stories, and if you want any more questions answered, if you have any other tips for us, or you want any more deep dives, maybe what plants we've done the best with, or any other, please hit us up on our Discord, the Extraeus Project Discord. Come to the Just Us thread and let us know what you think. Show us your garden. Show us kind of any plants that you're having trouble. We might be able to help troubleshoot some of the problems you have. Just let us know.
Yeah. We could always use more interactions on the Discord, and it'll be super fun to see what other people are growing too.
And again, as always with Just Us, if you have any other hobbies or any kind of things that are nerdy that you think that we might enjoy, please send those as well.
Absolutely.
On any of our socials. Please let us know, because we're always looking for new hobbies. Because like I said, a lot of times we stumble into them, but sometimes those are the best hobbies you'll find that really stick to you.
And please, if you really love this episode, make sure that you review, that you like, that you comment below.
And
let us
share.
know what you think. Yeah, and share with your friends too. Let them know. That way we can get more viewers. We can keep doing this more. It's super fun. And we really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Just remember to tune in for future episodes of Couple of Nerds and continue supporting us.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night. And that concludes today's journey through the realm of Couple of Nerds. We hope you had a blast exploring the intricate world of Extraeus. Don't miss out on the visual extravaganza over at our YouTube page at Couple of Nerds Podcast. It's where the magic comes to life with exclusive video segments, art previews, and a peek behind the curtain.
Dive deeper into our adventures by visiting DnDWifeStories.com, your haven for all our podcast transcripts and a treasure trove of content dedicated to the captivating universe of Extraeus.
Your unwavering support is our greatest treasure. Take a moment to weave your thoughts into a review and hit that subscribe button for an enchanting journey with Couple of Nerds.
Join us beyond the podcast in the Extraeus Project Discord. Connect with us, the creators, and even the travelers themselves. Witness the magic unfold in live drawing streams, game alongside us, and step into our digital tavern, the Bard's Haven. Share your stories and characters with fellow adventurers. Visit DnDWifeStories.com for the link to join our vibrant community.
Stay tuned for more tales, more laughs, and more insight into the world of tabletop gaming. Until then, may your dice be kind, your campaigns epic, and your adventures legendary.